I'm here with Uli Geissendoerfer. And am I pronouncing your last name correctly?
Yeah, the last name is perfect. The first name is actually Uli.
Uli, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I always tell everyone like Julie, but no Joe.
That's a good way to remember it. Yeah. So he's actually been in Las Vegas now for a number of years. I first met you with Cirque du Soleil. He was the musical director with the Elvis show, which was here in town for a number of years.
A couple of years.
Yeah, and you actually, so originally you're from Germany.
Yeah,
right?
From Munich, Germany.
And you've been in the States for a number of years.
Yeah, I came in '87. I came to study at the University of North Texas.
Okay.
And was there till '92, and then I started playing around, and eventually in '93 I moved to Hartford for 2 years.
Oh, okay.
I taught actually at the University of Hartford.
Oh, awesome.
And at that time I didn't teach music. I taught music there too, and then played with opera there and played with the ballet there.
Right.
But at the
and you mentioned your girlfriend at the time was an opera singer.
Exactly.
Okay.
Actually, wife at the time.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it progressed, and
that's why I get you in trouble.
I'm in trouble anyway.
Okay.
No, because I was going to go to Miami because I wanted to play Latin music.
Oh, okay.
But then we went to Connecticut, and there was actually a huge Latin scene. So I played a lot of salsa, a lot of merengue there.
Ah, that's interesting.
And as well Latin jazz, and that's how I hooked up with Giovanni Hidalgo's band.
Ah, okay.
And so just before
Giovanni,
I moved,
he's awesome.
Just before I moved to New York, I started playing in his band, because just before I started playing in his band, I actually went to Cuba to study for a little bit. There was an exchange program, and I was there, and that sort of supercharged me that I was actually even able to do it. I mean,
that's interesting about that, because I've met a lot of people and they say, well, I'm an Afro-Cuban percussionist, which is awesome, but I'm like, unless you actually grow up and immersed in that, like or actually I go there like what you did and actually study with the real people. Yeah. It's hard to get that into your, you can learn it, but you have to kind of live it,
That's why I came to the U.S. as well.
Yeah.
When I wanted to study jazz, I wanted to see, it's not about the music. The music,
right.
you buy records. That's how I learned. When I was a teenager, I played drums and harmonica and piano in rhythm and blues bands and southern rock bands.
Sure.
So you get that, you can emulate it, but you can only understand once you live there, once you talk to the people. Like when I was in Cuba, just breathing the air.
Yeah, it's not just the music; it's the food, it's the people.
Dance.
Right.
I mean, seeing the interaction between the dancers and the musicians,
right.
They actually challenged each other. And at that time, when I was there in '93, timba just came about, which is the dance style.
Right.
Now, and so that just came out Songo, and it was literally the dancers would come up with new movements, and then the percussionists come up with new breaks, and it was like...
So it's like a communication.
It's a wonderful thing, yeah.
So then you lived in New York a number of years, too.
15 years,
and played with a number of household names. One of them was Bobby Santabria, which is an interview I just recently did with Jazz in Europe magazine. Yeah. But so many others, too, right?
Yeah, Bobby's is amazing. Actually, we played with him together with my big claim to Latin jazz. We got Grammy nomination. We're still playing at times, which is William Cepeda, trombonist from Puerto Rico. He was the first one to really fuse bomba and plena and jazz. And we had some great records coming out. We toured a bunch of places.
Being in New York, you kind of have access to almost every style of music. You have people from all over the world coming there to play and to tour.
It's amazing. You have a scene for everything.
Right.
Yeah, which makes it so cool, because you jump the scenes too. Like from my Latin friend, suddenly I ended up in African. Because of the African, I suddenly ended up actually in some cabaret, which was really ironic. How would you do that? But the players do so many things there.
Right. Yeah, and you have to, it's so competitive too. You have to step up your game, right? It sort of forces you to do that. I think that was like when I went to Musicians Institute many years ago.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, in the mid-'80s. And, Howard Roberts was still there, the original staff, Tommy Tedesco. But the cool thing, and one of the reasons why I actually went there was because I wanted to study with guys that were actually doing it, the guys that were in the studios every day.
Exactly.
Because it really kind of forces you to step up your game.
Very much so.
So it's an interesting, I like that. I like that feeling, like where you're like, okay, I'm struggling, but that's when you're really learning.
Oh, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Every day you did something different. I did flamenco jazz here, then I did some Indian crossover stuff.
Right.
I ended up doing a lot of cabaret, being on tour actually with Utalempa, wonderful cabaret, maybe the top star of cabaret.
Yeah. So tell me about how did you coming to Vegas with Cirque? How did that come about?
We were living in New York, and I had one child, my daughter, and then we had a second child, my son Leonardo, and we lived in a 2-bedroom apartment with a big grand piano. Actually, not this one. He was even a little bit. Mine is now living at the dispensary lounge.
Oh, okay.
From that time, with a drum set, with 1,000 CDs, with 1,000 books, records, and a big dog, and it was just like we needed to move.
Right. Yeah. And it's just expensive to live in New York.
Well, I was okay because my rent was basically the same for the whole time I lived there.
Okay.
But therefore, my apartment too had one room where it really rained in.
Sure.
One time we had 3 gallons of water overnight.
Okay.
So it was just time to move because the landlord was just not as up on things as he should have been.
Okay.
So it was like, what are we gonna do? Maybe we're looking for a house to buy in Jersey, which was at that time, a lot of people moved out there because it was affordable to buy something. Maybe go back to Europe. And then a couple of things I forget, even a friend of mine said, why don't you check into Circle again? You worked with them before, which I did in 97, 98. I did a show with them in Europe. And so I called him up and said, so I'm looking for something. Do you have? Well, they said, well, we have 2 places where we look for people. We look for musical directors for a show here and for a show there. It was a traveling show, Corteo, and then was the new show that they just crafted, Viva Elvis. Right. So I went out to Corteo, I played with them, and I didn't get that. It was okay. It was a traveling show, which I was...
It's hard with the family to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the kids were small, so it would have been possible, but still with the schooling and all the whole 9 yards. And then I got the Elvis thing.
Yeah.
So we moved out here in 2009, and I did the show. The show was sadly short-lived because it was just the wrong time. Michael Jackson actually died the day we landed in Memphis with the whole cast.
Oh, wow.
The day, 2 hours later, we all sitting there to get texts on our phones.
I think we were actually living in Tokyo when that happened.
Yeah.
It was like, Michael Jackson was such a huge... in Japan was so huge.
Oh, yeah, of course.
We actually went and saw, I don't know if you saw the This Is It film.
Yes.
We saw that in Tokyo with a room full of Japanese people, and they were just crying. And so, not to get off of that tangent, but it's actually the Elvis show. So I saw the Elvis show when I came back from Japan. I was there with Cirque du Soleil also. And the show was great. The music was great. You guys actually were able to kind of rework some of the songs. And it was really an interesting show.
We had a guy actually from Montreal who did a lot of the sampling of Elvis and then put it together. And then we had a live band, which was great. Yeah. And then
great musicians, that band.
Wonderful musicians.
Yeah.
And the sad thing is I ended up, first I was on stage conducting everything, and then they put me, because I had the whole system to trigger all the loops and stuff.
Right.
So I ended up being in the lighting booth, and that was sort of the end when I was going, okay, this is...
Yeah, it's kind of not what you wanted to do.
Not what I signed up for. I went to them, okay, so that's plan E. What's plan B? There is no plan B. Yeah. I said, okay. So I did the openings and all that stuff, and eventually it was time to... and then the show didn't last, unfortunately.
So since you've been here, I kind of call you the jazz ambassador because you manage the entertainment for a club called the Dispensary,
right?
Which has basically become... there really aren't any jazz clubs, or not too many in Vegas anymore.
There's only one?
That's really one, yeah. So that's basically the main jazz club, and you guys have national, local... you're the entertainment director, I guess you would say, or the...
Yeah, they call me the curator.
The curator. Yeah, actually, that's true. Actually, that's a better way to put it.
Yeah, I started that actually almost exactly 7 years ago. It was in the beginning of February of 2012. And it came about that the new bartender, John, his sister is Vindy Karyanis, who you know as well, the singer.
Yeah.
And so the weekends were dead, and John said, my sister's a singer, why don't we do a weekend?
Right.
And the weekend was a huge success. Okay. And then Adele talked to me, and I talked to Adele. I said, okay, if we do anything musical, I want to create a jazz series. I want to create real music series. Right. Not like lounge act here.
And they had the Blue Note here for a bit.
That's right.
And it didn't last. And Vegas is a funny market, not only for just music, but shows in general, because it is a certain thing. People come here to party and do whatever they do.
It's entertainment.
But yet, the city has grown into actually quite a large city. I think we're almost a 3 million, or approaching that anyways.
Somewhere, yeah.
So just actually as a city unto itself, there's a scene. There's definitely people. There's a lot of world class musicians that live here. So that's a lot of people to draw from. Just even local musicians.
Right. And all the people that retire here, they love jazz.
Right.
So there's a whole older community that just actually keeps us alive too.
Right, and they really haven't, besides the touring acts, they really haven't had a local place to go. Right.
And then so the Dispensary, I was going like, okay, we do real jazz, and we do music for the music, so people come there to actually check out the music. And it took a moment before actually the owner even caught on to the idea, and then she saw which people came in, and when Marsalis came and played with us, and then I started teaching a couple of years prior at the university.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask you about that in a second.
Right, and so I started a lecture series there, and so whoever came to the lecture series, then I play at night at the dispensary as well. So we
Right,
did like
you
a
tie it
double.
together,
I
sure.
tied it together. Thus, I was able to create really great artists.
And that's something actually that I really like about what you're doing, because you're actually very active on social media promoting the shows,
Yeah.
and you take obviously you're active as a player too, not just booking acts, and so you're kind of like the curator, like you said.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
kind of it's all encompassed into that in what you're doing.
Yeah, and then on the weekends I'm there. Every first
Right.
Wednesday I do the jam session, and well, it's my form of therapy.
Yeah. That's
you know,
awesome,
you
though.
have
It's
to
awesome.
have the musical outlet.
And you're really creating. You created also a platform for young players in town to have
That
a
was-
place to play.
That was a very important thing for me.
Yeah.
That all the kids that I see at the university, many of them actually started at the dispensary.
Right.
And we nourish them and go like, play again and get them again. And I give them feedback too. I go like, that sounds great. Think about how you present it.
Well, that's something else I really like about you, because I mean we've actually done a few gigs together. We were just talking about that. But what I liked about you was that that I don't want to say jazz snob is a weird word, but you're totally not that. That you're very open. You like musicians, and you can feel that with you, and you're very open to playing with different players, and that's something I really admire, and something I've strived to do myself.
Yeah, you do that all the time.
And mix it up and play with different people, because I kind of listen to everything, and I think I kind of get that from you too. Like you kind of grew up playing different things, Latin jazz and just everything, right?
It grew up. I was into rock and roll,
Right, yeah.
Rhythm and blues, 50s rock and roll.
Yeah.
I mean, I was Jerry
Because
Lewis on
it's
the
all
piano.
music, anyways, right?
It is.
Yeah.
And it's just different dialects, and
Yeah.
it's really the energy of music, and that's what I'm trying to teach to them as well. I mean, jazz is one fraction, which is very important.
It's a vehicle of communication, right?
Yeah, and when you look at all the famous play in the studios,
Right.
most of them, especially in LA, they all had jazz
They
backgrounds.
had to kind of in LA. They had to kind of do everything
Exactly.
because
And-
to be a working
And
musician.
it gives you a frame of mind. Once you really know your acts and really know music, then it's okay. Then you can realize, okay, this is perfect right now.
Right. So let's talk about so your teaching. So since you've been here, now you've gotten really heavily involved in UNLV, which is our local university, and it's actually a world-class music program.
It is.
And so tell me about how that's going for you. I know you've won some Downbeat awards, and
We did. So I've been involved, as I said, since 2010, when I started with a Latin ensemble. There was none, or there had been one a few years prior.
Right.
And I started putting them back together. And not only Latin, but also world music. And I put some Indian stuff there. At first I wrote all the arrangements, then I encouraged the students to write the arrangements. And
Right.
so we're trying to create an original sound. So it fluctuates every semester who I have, how
Sure.
strong the writing is, and what we can do from it.
Yeah.
And it's sort of
and it's a large school. I mean, I don't know how many people attend that school, but it's in the many thousands.
Yeah. The music program, unfortunately, is not as big.
Right.
But the school, all the professors there, and all the teachers are there are into music. Nobody's there just living out their academic life.
Right, and I mean, having a university in Las Vegas, by its very nature, it's going to be a bit different than a
Right.
university in Iowa
Spokane.
or whatever. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
No offense, okay. And the cool thing is, there's a direct extension, especially with Dave Loeb. He puts on shows on the Strip. I put on shows as well, and I always involve students.
Right.
And as well, guys that come in from the outside with some great players, like that played with me, and talk about my album in a second, the new one, where the ex-players are on there.
Sure.
And they come to here, and we go like, okay, why don't you do your masters at the university? So we get an influx of great players that then push the young players to becoming
Right.
to step up their game.
And they get exposed to those world-class
Absolutely.
players.
And I think that's part of the success of the program too, that you really there's immediately a real world extension.
Yeah. Right.
And so
And that's
what
important, because I think in a lot of academic settings, sometimes you don't really have that real world attachment. And I, not to single out any particular school or whatever, but that's like, again, when I went to Musicians Institute, that's part of my thing, was I wanted guys that were actually really out there making a living teaching me.
Exactly.
It's important because they have a different perspective than just the academic world. They're both valid, but
Yeah, and you go to their gigs and you see them perform. So it's not just talk, but it's
Right,
like, oh wow,
exactly.
now what he was just talking about, and you learn so much by the impression you get, the energy on a gig.
Sure.
and so that's very important.
So you guys have won a number of awards with that ensemble.
I did. The Latin Ensemble, we won 4 Downbeat Awards. In 2015, we won even first place.
So what's the actual name of that? Is it the UNLV Latin Ensemble?
The official name is the Latin Jazz Ensemble.
Okay.
Really catchy.
So can people find that on YouTube if they want to search?
Yes, they find it on iTunes too. One record, actually
Okay.
the winning record, I put out on iTunes.
So what's the title of that record?
I think it's called Latin Journey.
But
It was the
UNLV
first
Jazz
one.
Ensemble.
It's called the UNLV Latin Jazz Ensemble,
Latin Jazz.
Latin Journey. Or if you Google my name, it will come up as it's associated.
And I'll put the links for you guys for you
For the
and
albums and all
and
that
also
stuff.
for the UNLV Ensemble, so you guys can find that. Cool. So what do you see the future for you? Like you're working on some recordings of your own too.
Right. So the future, well, it's very multi-layered actually.
Yeah. Well,
So
actually, let's talk about that because you actually just started your own record label
I did.
as a nonprofit.
Yes.
So that's challenging. Right?
It is a big challenge. No, well, it's not only having your own company.
What's
Well,
the name of the record label?
the label is called Vegas Records.
Okay.
And that was one of the reasons why I started it, because I looked up the name, Vegas Records, and there apparently were some entities, but
Right.
the name was available. I go like,
Yeah.
okay, that's a sign.
Like
We'll
that's
do
an
it.
obvious name, right?
Yeah.
You know?
And it's so obvious because I wanted to help the young artists create a conduit.
Right.
Because you get out of college, what do you do?
Sure.
And you become part of a show. Where's all your artistry? Because we don't,
That's the thing. That's the thing about the show thing, because people think, even with Cirque du Soleil, it is artistic in its way, but it is also it's a day job. It's a
It is
9 to
very
5.
much
It's a
a
9
day
to 5 job. Like it's 5 days a week, whatever it is, 2 shows a day, and you have to play. You have some leeway with those shows, as you know, but you pretty much you're playing what's there.
You become very much, you open a drawer and you're part of the drawer. You have
Right.
some wiggle
Yeah.
room in there.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing is, being a musician is great, but really my creed is we don't need more musicians, we need more artists.
Right.
Because artists reflect upon the
They're
world.
not always.
Artists,
It's not necessarily always the same thing.
no, it is not.
Right.
Because the one is more the person who does the job, the other is the person as well that creates jobs and creates new ideas and reflects
And
upon the world.
knows how to communicate.
Yes,
Right.
very much so. And so that Vegas Records is there to bridge that gap, and also we started the living archive of jazz in Las Vegas.
Yeah, because that's the thing too. People think in terms of jazz in Las Vegas. I guess people would obviously think of the Rat Pack, but actually everybody in the world's played here since going way back.
Since the 50s, all the major jazz players had residences here. Some stayed,
Right.
but all of them came in. It's the big bands, Buddy Rich, Count Basie.
Right.
I mean, Count Basie backing up with Quincy Jones.
Or Buddy Rich with Frank Sinatra, right? Yeah.
No, well, as it was Count Basie
Quincy
actually with
right.
Quincy, and they changed a lot of the scene because of that too, and until the mid '80s when the big musician strike was, it was just teeming with great music. There was
Right.
the Union Hall where they played
Right.
basically from the late afternoon,
Which is where I used
until-
to go. They used to have the
Oh
big
yeah, well
bands
you
at
know
the Union
about
Hall
it.
here.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So that was such a fertile ground, and now after 10, 15 years of dormancy, when I first started, you would go like, God, where's the creative music?
Right.
And then sort of pockets started developing, and I went like, we got to do something about this. And that's how the dispensary come about, how Vegas Records come about, and now I want to create this archive where people take the old sheet music, the old players, video,
And have it all kind of put together in one place.
put it all together, put on shows with the young players playing the music of the
Right.
old guys, so that there's a lineage there. And because I
Something
think
along with that idea is something with social media, that's the whole thing has changed. But so part of what we talked about is you're going to actually start doing even more Facebook Live from the dispensary.
absolutely,
And
Yeah.
and once he starts getting that rolling, I'm going to actually post that to some of our social media pages, because I really like to expose the world class players that live here.
Yeah.
I mean, we have guys that play with Celine, guys that play with everybody, Santana, like everybody you can think of live here in town.
and
are
they play the
world-class
dispensary,
players.
and then they come in from LA. I have so many great cats coming from
Yeah,
LA.
yeah.
Sometimes they take a couple of days vacation,
Sure, yeah.
and they come in. I just did, was Bob Shepard just was there.
Right, Bob, and like all the Rippingtons
Yeah, George,
and those guys.
Branford,
Yeah.
Brandon, not Branford.
Right, Brandon Fields.
And Brandon Fields, and George Garzone is going to come in the spring again.
Right.
Um,
That's
not
exciting.
Not that he's from LA, but
yeah.
and so it's very exciting. Great players. Danny Gottlieb comes through.
Yeah.
Scott Whitfield, trombonist, is coming in with us again, and singers as well from San Diego, from LA, from New York. We had even lots of cats from not lots of cats, but a bunch of cats from Europe.
Right.
Coming.
Because everybody kind of comes through Vegas
Right.
eventually, right?
And that's where I tied them in. Okay, if you're here, you go into the university, you tell the kids about what it is that you do, how do you sustain yourself?
Right.
Because
Right.
it's so important that, okay, what are we going to do now?
Right.
How do you get
Yeah,
yourself
you get all this
on
great
the road?
education, and then it's like, okay, well, how do I make a living, and how do
Right.
I survive?
And yeah, when you think about other places, like a lawyer, you have all these lawyer parties that you go to. Okay, here's the next steps you do. You apply for
Right,
jobs here.
for networking.
And in the music world, it's
tricky.
rather tricky.
Yeah. That's always the thing. It's like, how do I get my first gig?
Right.
that's always the challenge, which is something that we've all
Yeah.
experienced. Too.
And the cool thing is at UNLV, you have your first gigs before you ever play.
Right.
And then we started a new program too, which I'm very proud of, is the Nevada School of the Arts downtown.
Sure.
That's been around for 4
And
years.
that's more towards younger.
Yes,
people,
that's
right?
more high school and even some middle school. We even have a trumpet player that was 10 years old who is just crazy good.
Wow.
He's this little guy who came in. Oh, he was perfect, his audition. He was sitting there, and Kenny Rampton was the artistic director for last year. And he came in, and the little guy had the same trumpet as him.
Oh, wow, that's funny.
And you go, like, okay, all right. So what would you like to play? And he said, well, I'll play this. I want to start with, what was it, Autumn Leaves. And I said, okay, do you want me to stand up? No, I can't, I got it. At 9 years old, at that time, you go like, no, I got it. And I'm like, okay, good, he's all right.
Yeah.
I mean, and those are the things that really are amazing, because you see them all come up.
Right.
And they're at NSA, I do something different. I have them sing everything. I have them play by ear. We even did some free stuff. It's just
Just to kind of expand their brain.
developing their ears.
Right.
Because mechanics is mechanics.
Yeah.
You do.
Let me have you play a little bit for
Sure.
us, because I mean, obviously, many folks here on social haven't heard you play. Just go ahead and play whatever you feel like you want to play.
Whatever I feel like.
It should challenge you.
Yeah,
It's
you guys
actually-
know
it's-
chopsticks.
Yeah, it's not early morning for musicians. It's a little early. But
Here's a tune. Actually, then let's say I'm gonna do. In December, we have a nice concert where they play a bunch of my music arranged for the orchestra.
Okay.
And so this is one of the pieces. This one is called Song. Just goes on.
Nice,
So that's the head, and it actually was written for my daughter.
Nice.
Actually, I wrote that when I was on tour with Groove Collective, and we
okay.
used that vamp, just like
Yeah,
that.
it's kinda great. It's when you go to break out the shake.
Yeah, exactly. And then finally, I went like, I gotta get a melody, and then she was born, and I sort of improvised the melody. Suddenly, I could play the song.
Yeah,
That was great.
That's cool, man.
Yeah,
Well, thanks so much for taking the time. I part of my mission with jazzineurope.com and also just in general is to showcase people that are awesome players. There's, obviously around the world there's great players, but in Vegas we have a particular unique situation.
It is a unique
and with you
situation.
too, basically heading up the whole jazz scene here now. I think that's really awesome to be able to kind of introduce you to people and
I'm very happy about that.
that's awesome, and I think hopefully we'll do some more Facebook Live stuff with you and really showcase the club, and I think it definitely deserves some light in the world. You know?
And here, I want to show that to you.
Okay.
Is because I have now 3 releases on Vegas Records for this year.
Oh, okay.
The first one was a sort of a klezmer jazz crossover that it was laying there, and since I had the own label, we started bringing out, and the Barry Govsky suite.
So it's Alicia, how do you say the last name?
Alicia Swiegels. She's in New York.
Oh, okay.
And she's a great klezmer artist.
Awesome.
And then this is the UNLV CD.
Okay.
The UNLV, so I'm bringing now out all the UNLV jazz CDs. Right. The big band is on there, the Latin ensemble is on there, and some of the small groups.
Yeah.
And this is the trio CD actually of the resident trio at the dispensary, and that just came out. That's on the ballot of the Grammys too, where we're just voting.
Okay.
And so we'll see how far it goes.
Oh, I like the presentations.
Yeah, it's
awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to have really artistic, high level quality as well in the presentation. Because people nowadays, you watch and you listen with your eyes.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, that the whole world's changed, right?
Yeah,
With
very much so.
Video and social media and all that. Yeah. So.
Oh, hello.
You're popular.
Oh, there's your wife calling.
So it's probably our time to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much for taking your time and playing and what you're doing for the jazz scene in Vegas is super awesome.
Darrell, it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, guys, and
I'll see you later.
Yeah. Look for Uli's information. I'll put down the end of the video, and you can find him and also the UNLV Jazz Ensemble. They do great work. So great. Thanks a lot. Cheers from Vegas.
Cheers.